Made it to my mate's house at long last. It went much better than last time, but definitely still not without dramas. A few issues kind of cropped up with the bike when I went to fix it to do this trip. But we're here, we've had a burger and a beer last night, a couple of whiskies and a catch up, and then today he's going to take me out around all his favourite trails, a few little roads. I noticed he's on our little Vosges 300, which I lent him a while ago, with trials tyres on. So I'm in for a bit of a pickle today on my road tired GS, but looking forward to a catch up and some riding, and we're off to get some breakfast now. As mentioned, the trip was not without its issues. I'm not quite sure what was going on. So I bought a new fuel pump module for the bike, which was what we kind of figured was the problem last time, because when you bypassed it, the bike ran fine. Bought a new fuel pump module. Everybody says that's what goes wrong on them, so we bought a new one of them, fitted it, no dice, didn't run. Obviously I fitted it just before I came here and didn't give myself any time to test it because Chris. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. It doesn't like the new fuel pump module. The next step, I think, is to investigate the wiring loom. Where the front end of the bike had a crunch, I'm guessing there must be some wire somewhere caught, nicked, snipped that's upsetting it. I'm not really getting any warnings up on the dash. But yeah, new fuel pump module still doesn't run. So I went back to my bypass and I've made myself a manual fuel pump switch. So you look here, look at that. Flick that, fuel pump comes on. Who needs an ECU when you can be an ECU? So that's wired via the battery. So the wires come from the fuel pump module down to the switch and back, direct to the battery. It's kind of, you can just about see my wire tucked in there. And then it goes into the fuel pump in there. So basically, when I want to ride the bike, I just switch the fuel pump on and it works, which is not ideal. And I am going to have to do some more investigation. But the repair from here on is actually tracing back through the wiring loom and wrestling with the wiring loom, which was not going to be a quick fix. So I wanted to ride my bike, so that's the bodge we've done. Finally, actually getting a chance to go for a spin on the GS with my mate. Oh, this has taken some doing. Even after the last time when it broke down, this is still the second or third attempt at reshooting it because we got snowed on, I got poorly, things just kept getting in the way. We're gonna go motorbike riding, not letting it stop me, and especially with the repairs we ended up making. You know, I've been flat out doing a few races and events at the beginning of this year, so prepping this was a bit of a last minute job. It always is with me. I'm making excuses, it's always last minute. Those of you who watched the commented on the last video, you'll be pleased to see I've repaired the rev counter. It's perfect, it's like brand new. It was interesting reading the comments on the last video. A lot of people, it was almost like a polar mix of people saying, oh yeah, I had that, I had a GS, it did that, I fixed it, it was awesome, I love that bike. And people saying, this is why you should never buy a GS, they're terrible, they break all the time. It was a really interesting, like, how much it divides opinions. And I guess it depends on whether you love the bike or not. If you love the bike, you forgive it its shortfalls and its foibles and its things that go wrong, you just fix them and carry on. And if you're not enamored with them, if you don't love the bike, then that's an instant reason to hate on it. I guess it just comes down to what you do and don't like. I quite like the Boxer engines. I like the way they feel, I like the way they drive, I like the way these things handle and ride. So for me, it going wrong was like that's alright, we'll fix it. There's a decent amount of information out there. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong, but yeah, I've thought that with a lot of vehicles over the years. I've had stuff that has gone a little bit wrong and I've instantly sort of thrown my toys out the pram and gone, right, get rid of it, I hate it, it's rubbish. And I've had stuff that's gone wrong quite a lot, but because I love the vehicle fundamentally, whether it's a car or a motorbike, if it's something I already love, then you go, yeah, cool, new gearbox, no problem. I'll stick a new gearbox in that, I'm more than happy to. And other stuff, an indicator bulb glows and you go, it's rubbish, get rid of it. I think the moral of the story is buy a bike you love and fix it. It's more satisfying than buying one you kind of like and hoping it doesn't go wrong. Yeah, let's just ride up this trail. So far so good off-road on the Mighty GS. A little bit low on grip in the really soft muddy bits, but yeah, for a predominantly road biased tyre, there's enough of an edge to these that you're not completely out of control when it gets muddy. And these are, yeah, it's a tired old thing now, but these were famous for a low centre of gravity and good balance. And also I think the engine gives it a massive advantage, because the engine is a trialsy feel. It's low down and luggy and it plods along. So instead of having loads of revs and loads of engine inertia and loads of power trying to break traction, you can leave it right at the bottom of the revs and just chug along, and it makes the most of whatever grip you can find. And being a low centre of gravity means that when you do have a little slide, it doesn't immediately feel like it wants to topple over. Once you get stuck, there's no hiding the fact that it's a big heavy adventure bike, but the rest of the time it does look after you pretty well. My favourite sign, unsuitable for motor vehicles, means suitable for Christophers. It's interesting, there's a few bits where the GS has come, and not just the GS in fact, all adventure bikes have come so far since this era. The rider aids, which I'm not a huge fan of, but actually in adventure bikes for riding off-road, a modern proper off-road ABS system is phenomenal and actually lets everyone access more trails without the risk of horrible crashes. So that's a big move on from this era. Things like the foot pegs, these has got tiny thin foot pegs that I'm wobbling all over the place on. The Adventure of this era did have a proper set of foot pegs on, but that's moved on loads. And yes, the dashes and the tech have moved on tons since these ones, especially with my rev counter. But I don't feel like the riding experience has been helped by so much of the tech. You know, this has still got relatively skinny between the legs. I think it's better than some of the modern GS's and modern adventure bikes. The riding position's really good on these. The shape, the position of the bars, they've got that stuff really right. And okay, the ABS is something that's missing, but everything else about the way this rides off-road, I don't think new ones have come on that far. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I've ridden 1200s, 1250s, 1300s, I've ridden miles and miles on them all off-road, and they are great, but they're not night and day better than this. On the road, for sure, the performance is now jumped on a huge amount, but for touring and trail riding, I don't actually think the riding experience has come that far. The tech has, the gizmos have, but do they make the ride actually better? I don't think they do. I think that's probably why the Yamaha's Tenere has proved so popular, because it's a great bike. It doesn't need all the gizmos and LCD screens and nonsense. You need a good bike, a good engine, and a good chassis, and then everything after that is frippery. Oh, this is a good little lane. Good shout, Ollie. See, go and visit your mates, go and ride their local, because I would never in a million years drive to Surrey to go trail riding. Unless you live in Surrey, most people drive to Wales or the Peak District or Portugal. But actually, there's some amazing trails here, and it's beautiful. It was more beautiful earlier when the sun was out, but I'm not going round the puddle, no way. and as always, the puddles are never that deep. There's always a trail around them, but then you go through them and they're never that deep, and the bottom of the puddle's always hard. Whereas the route round is usually some lethal, soft, rutty death. Peter Sheffers surveyed his Highland cattle from here. Are they Highland cattle if we're in Surrey?
Highland cattle all over here.
But is it? I thought, aren't they from the Highlands if it's Highland cattle?
What can I say?
He's imported them. They've come down here, taking our cows' jobs. Yeah. All right, whee! Got berms on the edge of the trail. What a great idea. and jumps. Success. I'm calling that a win. That bike was in the scrap bin, written off, done with, and now it is back out in the wild where it belongs. Bombing down trails. Best mod I've done to it is covering it in mud. I'm very pleased with that. Has been a bit of a... The actual repair wasn't a nightmare, but yeah, the breakdown and the consequent repairs and fiddly bits have been a bit of an ordeal with it, but that's the game of older motorbikes. And again, I kind of said a few times earlier, when you look back at the comments from the last video we did on it, where people were either in one camp or the other, there were people that were, oh yeah, my bike broke down like that, I fixed this, this and this, I've done 1,000,000 miles and I love it, best bike ever. Or people having exactly the same fault saying, mine did that, stupid bike, I hate it, BMWs suck. And it's, you know, the same thing happens to two different people, and depending on their perspective on the bike, depends on whether they react by going, I love my GS, or GSs suck. And it is such a divisive bike for that. And yeah, it's no secret that I'm a fan of them. I enjoy the GSs. I particularly like the Boxer engine just because of the way it feels. It's broken down, it's been a bit of a pain. Definitely you get annoyed when it happens, but then you fix it. That's what makes you different from someone who just buys a bike and phones the AA when it goes wrong. That's, you know, for me, I love that part of biking, is keeping them going. The fact that I've had to rig up a little Jimmy switch on the side to keep my fuel pump running, I mean, it might not be everyone's ideal cup of tea, but that makes me like the bike a little bit more because I have to fiddle with that before I ride anywhere. It's been a mega thing to ride around today. Few trails, getting out to go and see a mate, mucking around doing some filming, playing with some new cameras. It's exactly what I needed and exactly what this trip was about. I would never have come to Surrey to come and ride trails. I live in Wales. Why would I go anywhere other than Wales to ride trails? But I've come here and been reminded how good it is here and how fun it is to ride somewhere different and let someone else do the route planning for a change. So massively grateful for this bike for giving me an excuse to do that. One of the great little backstories that's gone on in the background while we've been building this bike is that the previous owner, the person who crashed it and had it written off, got in touch and said, wow, that's my bike. I love that it's appeared and doing something. And then messaged again to say, I love that bike and you know what's coming, then can I buy it back? Can I have it back afterwards? Which I'm really happy to be able to reunite him with a bike that he's loved and missed. I'm going to try and do a few extra little tweaks and nice things for him just to give him a little upgrade. But yeah, we've found a new home. We found a buyer for the bike. I'd love to give it back to him for nothing, but I've got to eat, I'm afraid. It's a really nice ending to the story to be able to give it back to the person who lost it because it got crashed and because it got written off. I don't know. I think that's a cool thing. I'm really excited for that. So we're done with this one. On to the next write-off rebuild, and happy that this one's going back to its original home.